Hello friends and fellow Simstorians, welcome back to another episode in my Victorian Sims 2 challenge. Today we are hanging out with the Jungs, and oh, it looks like we've just gotten some inheritance money. I don't actually know who that's from. Let's check it out. Oh, it's from Kaylin Holloway. So that is actually her mother, Lydia's mother. So we've inherited a couple thousand from her, which is really nice because the Jungs, as you know, are pretty staunchly middle class. They don't have near as much money. And here's just a little glance at the family tree because I'm a little bad at, keeping up with updating the Plumtree family tree for you guys. I'll get back to that in hopefully the next rotation or two just because I know it's getting a little chaotic. And we have over like 130 Sims in my neighborhood at this point. It's a little hard to keep track, and that's not even including all of the Sims who have died. As you can see, the Jungs have had a bit of a tragic go at things with a lot of the second generation kids dying tragically and not of old age. So we do have some happy children in the Jung household, which is nice to see. I know that a lot of the Jung kiddos have been super angsty, but Evelyn is a really well-adjusted girl. Lydia's a great mother. She has this real, youthful, childish spirit, which does help her to connect with her kids quite a bit. Although, we honestly see Lydia and her husband Peter kind of canoodling and enjoying themselves a little bit more often than we actually see them interacting with the kids. It definitely surprised me a bit, considering how, I don't know, I expected them to be more doting parents, and instead they're not. But that's okay. It's the 19th century. We take what we get. Edmund and Lee are, of course, still very happily married. They are in their old age. They're probably not going to die this episode, but we might see them pass away next rotation, which is a little unfortunate, but it is what it is. Meanwhile, Peter and Lydia kind of have the same idea as their parents and parents-in-law and decide to spend the night together. It's just, it's so nice to actually see happy marriages in this house, because we've had some interesting relationships that have developed in the Jung household. But these two are thick as thieves. They're a great couple together, except for the fact that Peter is a little bit sneaky. So we can see that once Lydia falls asleep, Peter is starting to stir a bit. He never exactly fell asleep and decides to get up. It's about midnight at this point. Lydia's fast asleep. And instead of just getting up and doing some reading, he actually decides to take the carriage as quietly as he can and head over to the local pub. This is Old Hattie Clark's, named after Molly's mother, Hattie Clark. And it's a pub that I built myself. I think it's kind of cute. And we've got some townies here running and manning the bar. I was a little surprised at how many women are kind of autonomously visiting the pub tonight, because this was, you know, intended to be a place that was a little bit more gentlemanly. But you know what? Whatever my Sims want, they get, as we learned last episode with Cecil and Daisy. Although Cecil's been a little bit of a problem. We saw in the vignette that we had a little bit of an altercation between Cecil and Philippa. And normally Philippa doesn't quite involve herself in the drama, but we do have Louisa Clark. She does enjoy the pub a little bit, and we have Alston Sully here. And Alston is proper lower middle class, while the Jungs are upper middle class at the moment. And so it's not exactly the most fitting of friendships. However, they're giving it a go. They're chatting at the pub. Honestly, I don't think Peter cares as long as he has a drink in his hand. We've definitely seen Peter really rely on alcohol. Oh, no, you should not be harding after Louisa. She is married, and so are you. These Sims, I swear, I don't know what I'll do if Peter decides to have an affair here. I think I'm just going to have to cancel it. Like, normally I just let my Sims do whatever they want, and like, come what may as my attitude. But I'm just like, I am not in the mood for it after Daisy and Cecil. I'm still not recovered from that. But he does have a good chat with Leonora, who really shouldn't be here in the middle of the night. I don't know why Leonora is here. She has a fresh newborn at home, so it's not exactly like the most socially appropriate thing, but you know what? And so Peter does sneak home. He's thinking about the woohoo he had with his wife Lydia right before he left, and enjoys a kiwi under the night sky instead of going into the kitchen and waking anyone up, because the Jung household actually has, as you might be able to tell, an entrance on the side of the building. So for Peter and his wife to get to their bedchambers, they actually go outside. They don't go through the main building. Aldous, you see here, is a very sweet uncle to his niece, and honestly really just like loves the kids. So Peter and Lydia do have 2 kids right now. They have Evelyn Lottie and Willard. And Willard is going to be the heir. We can call him Will. And he's still a toddler at the moment. Nellie, of course, gets up very early. She has no idea, because of the structure of the house, that Peter has been sneaking off in the middle of the night to go do some drinking. And so she's cooking breakfast for everyone. Lee is just very great at all of this domestic stuff. She's making omelets. She's preparing it before the whole house stirs, at least she thinks. The only issue, of course, is that everyone else is awake except for Peter, and it seems a little weird that Peter sleeps in so late most nights, but there's not a whole lot they can do about it, and I guess they just assume he's going through some kind of midlife crisis that involves a lot of sleep, like he's a teenager or something. I don't know. They think it's weird, but none of them realize that he might actually be leaving the house. So no one's like really skeptical at the moment. Like no one's about to call him out on sleeping a little extra. because he also does have like small children, and maybe he's just tired, even though Peter doesn't really go near his kids. Honestly, I can't even remember the last time that Peter actually interacted with Evelyn or Will. Like, no idea. Oh, look at that. We have another baby on the way, which is just perfect because these two are great parents and they're heavily involved. We do see that Lee is really anxious these days. She is constantly kind of worrying. She is a family sim, so it's a bit... I would say it's a bit weird that she's so concerned about their family's livelihood. She knows that her stepson isn't super involved with the kids. However, Aldous kind of makes up for it and is constantly hanging out with little Evelyn. Aldous and Evelyn have a really lovely relationship that I really enjoy watching. They're very close. He's constantly pestering her in that kind of big brother way that he's got. And you can see him talking to Edmund here. So what we have planned for Aldous, he doesn't seem to like his older brother, which isn't exactly surprising. So he comes over here and starts slapping paints onto the easel because he's so frustrated with his older brother. And like, gosh, who can blame him? But anyway, so Aldous's plan so far is to get a small cottage and use some of the wine, like leftover wine scraps, for a vinegar making business. And so next I decide to send the boys over to Meadowlark Hall. We saw this a little bit for a wedding last episode, but it is also a bit of a local society hall where people can come to play whist, do a little gambling, just those kinds of fun things. And so we have Edmund and Aldous over at a table while Peter sits down at his own table, and lo and behold, Cecil actually does show up. And so he does play a game with a little bit of gambling with Cecil as well as Lucinda Avery here. So he's playing against some people who are a little more socially elevated than him, which means that they are betting higher amounts of money. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if Peter had his own money. However, before he came to Meadowlark Hall, he grabbed a little bit of money from their stores at home, and in particular about 6,000 simoleons. Now, they only have about 7,000 simoleons total for the family, and that money is supposed to go to Aldous's inheritance so that Aldous can start his vinegar making business, because otherwise he would have no money to actually buy the fermentation equipment and his own space so that he could have a home business. So the stakes are a little high here. I think that Peter is anticipating on actually making more money. However, as you can see from his kind of like dour persona at the moment, he loses all 6,000 of the simoleons. And unfortunately, he has to tell Edmund because there's no way he can replace the money that he took, and no one realized he took that money in the first place, and Edmund is livid. Meanwhile, Aldous has no idea what's happening and is just drinking at the bar after having a little bit of fun with some casual whist. No one was really betting large bills at his table, so it wasn't necessarily a big deal, but oh my gosh. Edmund is so upset. I mean, Peter had no right to take his little brother's money. Edmund knows that Lee is going to be furious because Lee is Aldous's mother. Of course, if you remember, Peter is not Lee's son. Peter is Emma's son. Emma died in childbirth with him. So he has a bit of a tenuous relationship with Lee, although Lee really is the one who raised him because she's been around for ages. Meanwhile, Lee doesn't know what's happening. She is working on cleaning up, fixing some faucets and things around the house. She and and Lydia have just kind of been prepping the house for another baby. Although we can see here that there's a little bit of tension going on. Will doesn't exactly recognize Aldous as being his brother, but eventually Aldous kind of wears him down, and Will does start to love him, especially because Aldous is really the one that's raising all the kids. Like, I don't know what we're supposed to do when Aldous moves out this episode, because he's only like 2 days away from becoming an adult, so it's a little bit complicated. Now, we do decide to have an anniversary party because it is Edmund's lifetime want to throw a golden anniversary party, which he just did, which means that he is one of the first persons in the entire neighborhood to reach platinum, permaplat specifically. That's right. It's taken us, what, like 2 generations to actually have a single sim do that. The only other sim in town that has reached permaplat also did it from the golden anniversary lifetime want. So it's a really easy one. I'm always so happy when we actually reach that, unless we, lose one of the partners to like childbirth or tuberculosis or the flu or tragedy. I don't know. I mean, it happens. So Edmund is delighted. He's trying really hard not to think about the fact that his son just lost quite a big amount of money. He's sipping on some tea, admiring the party, really grateful that he has a relationship that has actually reached this far in its lifespan. You can see that Peter is sitting as far away from his father as possible and is a little bit stressed at the whole thing. We have Della playing the piano, and Della's son Percival with Bertie over here having a little dance, enjoying himself, while Bertie is kind of like, I don't know what to do here, as usual. We have Winnie Harvey, now Winnie Jung. This was Jonah's wife. Jonah died in a tragic satellite crushing event that I did not plan, because why not? And she has, really aged well. She worked for the Lawsons as a maid for a while, but since has moved out with her 3 triplets. 2 of them are moved out and married at this point now, so she's having a little bit of a better time. And Lydia has no idea what's happened still. Really no one else in the household knows yet. And so Lydia and Peter are still really close. They're really quite lovey with each other, but I'm interested to see how that does change in the future, because we do have a little bit of underlying tension to develop. So it is Sunday. I decide to send the whole family out to St. Philip's Parish to have a little church sermon. You can see here that the graveyard is getting quite full. At some point we are going to have to build another church, another graveyard. We could maybe just do an adjacent graveyard next to the church, we'll see what happens. And everyone is kind of enjoying the small gardens. We do have Brooke Clark here, and I was not anticipating on Brooke formally meeting her father Marcus in this moment, but I caught Marcus introducing himself to her, so she doesn't know that this is her father. So that's a whole thing. And of course we have the famous Parson Alan Westerfield here, who apparently never ages. He's supposed to be an elder. I keep forgetting to go over to his household and aging him up into an elder, because I find his household very boring and I don't really play it. I mean, both of his kids left and refused to be raised at the parsonage. So we have a lot of the prices here. So we do have Marcus and his daughter. We've got some Lawsons. That's Harrison Lawson. We have Charles King over here. And we do have some Harvey kids. These are Sophronia and Albert Harvey's children, Rainier and Eliza. And look, Faye has even decided to stop by. Faye moved out, I think, last rotation. And Peter is still in his dressing gown because, classic Peter alcoholism stuff. And Peter is a little unsure about how to actually approach his younger brother at this point, who still doesn't know, and he's moving out literally tomorrow, but it's fine. Oh, hi, Septimus. I'm so sorry about what we did to you last episode. I really didn't want to do that. And we've got some kings and prices here. And two of Marcus's daughters are here. Of course, Peter goes straight to the communion wine. He doesn't spend a whole lot of time away from the wine. But after the service, we do have a lot of people enjoying the gardens, eating some fresh apples from the apple tree, and just having a little go at some kicky bag, just, some post-church fun. The church was an important social experience for people, and so everyone was generally quite close with their parishioners, and so it's just lovely to see everyone kind of get along. We have a little bit of playfulness between Edmund and Aldous, which is really lovely to see because, we don't know what's going to happen. Apparently the issues with the Lawson children are just continuing because we just saw Theo stealing their newspaper in front of Evelyn. Poor Lee is still upset. I think that Edmund finally told her what was happening financially, and this means that her eldest son, isn't the heir, and now doesn't even have an inheritance to move out with. And she is absolutely distraught. She is very upset with Peter, who is perhaps a little bit tone deaf at the moment and is enjoying a little dance while she is sobbing, like literally right next to him. So it's a little bit awkward to experience. And of course she's still crying even though grandbaby Will is about to age up as a child. Of course, this is like her step-grandson, so they're not technically her kids, but Lee has a lot of experience raising a child who you think as your own because she raised Peter in that way. So she views her grandkids as her proper grandkids. She's really loving and non-discriminatory regarding family ties. So it's finally time for him to age up. I'm so excited because toddlers in the house are just proper chaos. Here he is. Those Jung genetics are so strong. He looks so much like Peter. I can't get over it. I was really expecting him to look more like Lydia, but honestly, I see very little Lydia in him at all. And of course, here we have Lee still crying and Lydia and Peter just dancing away like their poor mother-in-law and stepmother is not having an existential crisis. We do have Lydia still very pregnant, so you can see her belly kind of moving as she dances. And just like his older Aunt Mary, great Aunt Mary, Will is a fantastic little pianist. And so Lydia is kind of talking to Lee, it's really unfortunate that Aldous doesn't get to go to university, and Lee is just distraught at any mention of Aldous at this point. But on the bright side, Will has brought in some real playfulness to the family. He's almost kind of like this comic relief in a family that is otherwise very tense and very conflicted. And his biggest supporter, of course, is Aldous. So it's finally almost time for Aldous to age up and move out. So we have him sell some of his paintings that he's been using on Lee's old easel that she left for him after she moved out. So we are able to raise about 3,000 simoleons for him. But before it's time for him to move out, it is time for Lydia to have her next baby. So excited. I can't wait to have another Lydia baby. I hope this one looks a little bit more like her because I think Lydia is adorable. We've all compared her a bit to Anne of Green Gables, and so I would love a little redhead. I don't think that's gonna happen, but you never know. So we have another boy here. We are going to name him Matthew Horace Jung. And I think Lady Simmer actually had put Matthew on my list of names to use. He has he has blue eyes. He has his mother's blue eyes specifically with brown hair. So hopefully we're going to have a good mix of his parents in this one. And true to form, Aldous is the one who feeds him his very first bottle as though he is his own parent. Aldous, I swear this kid is such a family sim. I know that he's not. I think he's a pleasure sim or a wealth fortune sim, but he really acts like a family sim. So he ages up with minimal fanfare. He didn't really want a birthday cake or anything like that. And unfortunately, he does age up very, very poorly. He essentially reaches rock bottom and has a full mental breakdown on the kitchen floor. And they have to call in, of course, the therapist, the classic therapist. So I think this is when his father actually tells him that they lost all of his money. So when he thinks that he has raised an extra $3,000 for his already $7,000, so he thought he was going to have $10,000, but plot twist, he only has $3,000 to move out with. He is so upset. He doesn't understand what happened. He's so angry at his brother. I mean, he never thought his brother would stoop this low to take his inheritance and gamble with it. I mean, that is a big deal in this period. And Aldous he has a good heart. Like, no one would have done this to Aldous on purpose. Like, he just doesn't understand that Peter has a problem and Peter really needs help for it. So we have him move out. I will show you guys his home that he moves into next time. It's just going to be one of the apartments. I haven't fully decorated it yet, so we'll save that and we'll give him a little visit next episode. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked today's episode. I think we're going to have a little bit more of a dramatic episode next time with the prices. So I will see you next time. Bye.